Super Mario remains the icon of video games. Rightfully so, boasting multiple milestones of gaming innovation from Donkey Kong to Mario 64 and beyond. Fans and critics alike await each Nintendo console's lead Mario game, expecting high standards of gameplay polish. Unlike other gaming mascots, Mario was not inherently designed with merchandising in mind, but first focused on making good games. The plumber's entire design, for example, stems from the fact that his mustache and overalls would make the character more easily visible to the players. Don't be mistaken, the milking of the brand with toys, TV shows and all sorts of merchandise came very fast. However, this did not get in the way of innovating the main product, which was the games. Even if not always groundbreaking, Mario usually promised new ideas to keep the IP fresh. Yet there also was a weird time in which exactly that didn't seem to be a priority anymore, where marketing rules took over. This video is gonna take a look back at that one specific period, how the brand got there in the first place, and how this particular phase would ironically reinforce where the real strength of Nintendo's most recognizable franchise lies. After the success of Donkey Kong, one of the most iconic arcade machines of all time, the protagonist who was fighting the Big Ape would be shaped into his own character with another arcade game called Mario Bros. And then, under the guidance of Donkey Kong inventor Shigeru Miyamoto and soon longtime producer Takashi Tezuka, become Nintendo's poster child for home console gaming. Beginning with Super Mario Bros. On Nintendo's first home console, the NES, a perfect bridge between console and arcade game design philosophy, to the more adventurous Super Mario World on Super Nintendo and the revolutionary Super Mario 64 on their first 3D platform. These flagship games always demonstrated what a new Nintendo machine was capable of. Yet, Super Mario did not solely remain under the wings of Miyamoto and Tezuka. From the beginning, one plan was to make Mario the face of Nintendo and their games in general, not just for action titles and platformers, making him star in all sorts of titles, from sports games to Tetris clones like the now also infamous Dr. Mario. Not to mention racing with Mario Kart, which took on a life of its own. Newly introduced characters such as Yoshi on Super Nintendo would then often pave the way for new concepts altogether, which would sometimes become classics themselves, like Yoshi's Island. But Super Mario also became a platform in itself for other developers to try new ideas. Nintendo's handheld division under Gunpei Yokoi would continue the original Super Mario Bros. Concept with a whole new take on Game Boy called Super Mario Land. Super Mario Land 2 in particular to this day has many unique twists, like an open map and a roguelike punishment if you go game over. Since it wasn't restrained by preset characters, they could create new villains like Wario, later a mainstay in the Mario roster, and afterwards also the star of a brand new Wario Land series, which focused on decelerated platforming with slight exploration and much more expressive graphics. That series, on the other hand, would later spawn WarioWare, a frantic series of super short minigames, presented like a wacky Japanese game show. Yet this approach wouldn't be restrained to Nintendo's internal studios. For example, they allowed Donkey Kong to be reinvented by British developer Rare. While following a similar gameplay style, Donkey Kong Country would also boast a much jazzier and more moody presentation. And by creating a whole new set of characters, of which some, like Diddy Kong, would become as famous as some of Nintendo's own mascots from Japan, Rare's Donkey Kong felt like a franchise in itself. Miyamoto at some points would step in to course correct, like when Rare tried to give the ape a shotgun, but the company was still relatively free to design Donkey Kong their way. Even third-party developers like Square would change the Mario brand forever. On Super Nintendo, they were given the Mario franchise to create one of their trademark role-playing games. By mixing their infamous turn-based combat with action commands in the vein of Mario's platforming roots, Super Mario RPG would create a pretty unique spin on this entire gameplay genre. Yet, it would also flesh out the Mario characters drastically by sending them on many unpredictable adventures, as the game would be followed followed by a decades-long line of Mario RPG games. Among them the absurd Mario and Luigi series, and maybe even more popular, the Paper Mario games. This series in particular would be proof, despite Mario being so obscure, the franchise can even work as a story game, as it featured lots of unique set pieces and pleasantly witty writing. Between GameCube and the early days of Wii, the world of Mario seemed to have no limits. Nintendo themselves wouldn't even launch their new GameCube console with a new Mario platforming game, but with Luigi's Mansion, a kind of survival horror spoof. Yet it remained true to the franchise by showcasing the new graphical abilities of their machine. Then the actual platforming game Mario Sunshine wasn't a simple rehash of its predecessor Mario 64, but a showcase for the console's water physics. Among other experiments, developer Next Level Games would make the Mario Soccer spin-off with some of the most eccentric interpretations of these characters, while the developers of Paper Mario would turn their sub-franchise into grotesque modern art. During the 20th anniversary of Mario Bros. In 2005, Miyamoto even said that it was always important not to put restrictions on the characters so they could work with any game world. But this sentiment slowly seemed to change not too long after this interview. In 2006, the retro-inspired side-scrolling game New Super Mario Bros. On Nintendo DS broke all records. And then again the sequel New Super Mario Bros. Wii in 2009. Now, while the Wii's big 3D Mario adventure called Galaxy was bigger in scope and another new take on the formula, it was nowhere near as successful. The sales numbers were nothing to scoff at, but fell short of those traditional 2D platformers. At that time they felt like an antithesis, which meant no more experiments, instead meticulously channeling the oldest Super Mario Bros. Games from gameplay to presentation. Ironically, this conservative approach at this experimental time was quite refreshing, until it wasn't. Without a shadow of doubt, it was the humongous sales numbers for the first two New Super Mario Bros. Games which led to a rethinking at Nintendo. Multiple sequels to New Super Mario Bros. Featured the same gameplay ideas and level mechanics, identical progression systems, backdrops, and even copy-pasted music. They almost felt like remasters or map packs instead of sequels, trying not to scratch the success formula one bit. The last innovation being multiplayer in the second game. The Wii U launched with New Super Mario Bros. U, arguably one of the least innovative Mario games ever made. Around the same time, the 3DS would also receive its own New Super Mario Bros. Iteration, making the Wii U version an even less exciting launch game. The other big Mario game on Wii U, Super Mario 3D World, tried to capture the same crowd as a sequel to the handheld game Mario 3D Land, not following up fresh concepts like Mario Sunshine or Galaxy. It was yet another mirror of New Super Mario Bros. In aesthetics and game feel, including much more simplistic controls. The original Mario 3D Land still used the unique features of its hardware, meaning the stereoscopic 3D effect, but it didn't make much sense as a console showpiece. They tried making multiplayer a selling point, but even that was just following what they did with the side-scrollers coming out around the same time. While the Wii U had many problems, like confusing marketing, one part of its financial failure must have also been that their biggest flagship franchise felt too safe and unexciting, because these aesthetic boundaries also made for less gameplay ideas. These games were not broken, but they felt like cash grabs. The most refreshing Mario game, the crafting platformer Mario Maker, came way too late, despite making much more sense for the console's touchpad controller compared to the more predictable mainline iterations. This kind of predictability did slowly apply to almost all spin-off games also. Prior, Paper Mario was known for its quirky set pieces, yet Miyamoto himself ordered to remove all unique characters and elements that could not be found in the side-scrollers from the 3DS iteration Paper Mario Sticker Star. Many years later, series producer Kensuke Tanabe would confirm it was true. There have been rules which prevented developers from making new characters or altering existing characters, such as Toad. On top of that, all the role-playing elements were dumbed down. When the Wii U then would receive a direct sequel called Paper Mario Color Splash, the reveal trailer might have gotten the biggest amount of dislikes ever for a Mario game. A crossover between both role-playing series Paper Mario and Mario & Luigi on 3DS was also lacking any of the more zany characters and set pieces of before, and resorted to much more bland backdrops. These new franchise rules were noticeable in almost all spin-offs, only Mario Kart seemingly being allowed to go a little more crazy. New spin-offs became rare, with the exception Captain Toad not feeling nearly as radical as Luigi's Mansion or WarioWare before it. Speaking of which, prior spin-offs continued to exist, but seemingly only because they had the luck of already being established. The logic is understandable. Super Mario should have a coherent product line between its games, merchandise and beyond. It's a huge franchise. Titles such as Paper Mario Wii became quite weird in terms of style, probably too much for the likes of Miyamoto. Yet, in my opinion, this kind of reaction and course correction, overly regulating the series' appearance, went against the franchise appeal. Let's go back to Wario, who spawned many unique concepts which originated way back in experimental spin-offs on Game Boy. If you followed the marketing idea of this era, iconic characters like Wario would have never existed. Miyamoto would have already cancelled Mario Land 2 where he first appeared, because it didn't follow the old formula of having all the same grass and lava stages with Bowser and that guy as the end boss. Other minor twists would have also been unthinkable, like replacing Donkey Kong with Diddy Kong as the main character to make even a rather safe sequel a little unpredictable. With Wii U becoming a sales disaster, change seemed to be on the horizon with Nintendo Switch and its new flagship game Mario Odyssey. A game which felt ambitious, on par with the classics and above all, not like something you already played, boasting creative sandbox platforming, a new core mechanic to drastically change Mario's moveset, accompanied by all new set pieces and characters, which helped a lot to push the new Switch console and to easily beat sales numbers of Mario titles in the prior generation. Weirdly enough, a big change for the franchise as a whole beyond Odyssey did not seem to come at first. Spin-offs remained rather tame, including yet another Paper Mario sequel controversial among hardcore fans for its weak characters and story. When during the late stages of Nintendo Switch, the company announced movies, theme parks and Lego sets, it felt like a done deal. They're just not gonna touch these strict rules for their mascot anymore. Except when out of nowhere they did. Maybe because another attempt at New Super Mario Bros, despite selling millions, still fell short of the original success. For the 2020s, Nintendo went back to the drawing board. Super Mario Bros. Wonder in particular seemed to have the mission to bring back the wonder of Mario, and it drove home why new characters and backdrops are quite important. While traditional to play, new maps, new secrets, and just small bits of new context meant that, unlike its predecessors, you didn't know where the game was going, or just the fact that I didn't know what kind of movement pattern this guy had. New set pieces opened the potential for new gameplay. It also felt like a nice admission that they brought back the Super Mario RPG, the game which began this once very unusual spin-off series, and also Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, the game most acclaimed for its unique takes on the Mario world. They also went back and gave the Wii U Mario game a much more interesting twist. Even outside developers like the Konami veterans Goodfeel were allowed to make a new universe for Princess Peach, one of the more drastic new takes since Luigi's Mansion. And even though the writing was rather tame, also Ubisoft was allowed to take Nintendo's characters through much more outlandish worlds in Mario plus Rabbids 2. Video games are expensive to make and are perhaps even more geared towards keeping certain formulas intact compared to other entertainment media, which is why franchises such as Resident Evil and Legend of Zelda are so appreciated whenever they dare to experiment despite their established success formula, instead of milking a single safe idea. And in that regard, if done right, Mario is the prime example.